Summit. Please enjoy yourselves and let's welcome on stage Gaetan de Dietrich.
Thank you, guys. It's a delight to be here. All right, let's do this.
Go Singapore.
You're ready to go.
I was very grateful and very excited when Co-Liv offered for me the opportunity to give a talk about the philosophy of community building. And the reason why that is because I feel that somehow the idea of community is something that we need to defend. And so the law student in me was finally getting a chance to defend an innocent. But more seriously, I think learning about community forces us to unlearn a lot of things about how our world supposedly works and what makes us actually thrive. It's not only important for our industry, I think it's important to the world. And we are going to have to turn into advocates because the truth of the matter is that somehow community and the idea of co, which means jointly, has come to mean fairly negative things or some sort of delusional ideals. But if philosophy is the love of wisdom, and wisdom is the art of knowing what to overlook, how come we've decided that it's wise to overlook an organizing model that's worked for us until about 1945, which is about 99.965% of our time on this planet? In order to understand this, we got to start at our origins. At the source of everything is a very little crafty object called the brain. As you're all well aware, our brains have adapted through a system of survival of the best equipped, favoring traits of character and thought processes that allowed us to survive at first and then to thrive. Essentially, what our brains have done is create a balancing mechanism that helps each one of us find the right balance between two opposing forces. One is the need to differentiate ourselves from others. That's the part of our brain that got us, our ancestors, to go explore beyond Africa, get the best mating partner, or that little chalet in the Alps with a vegetable garden. And on the other side, our need to integrate, which means accessing resources that will help us bring our children in safety, achieve longer-term goals, or simply not feel lonely. So what we have now are different sets of chemicals which have been engineered over 10,000 of years to keep us what we call the collaboration zone, the state of mind where you feel that you're actively taking it on you to help others around you, which basically means that we are chemically incentivized to contribute, to not be a freeloader and take up our fair share of the work, but also not to fail to share and hoard resources. Through a combination of a couple of molecules, mostly dopamine and oxytocin, we are biologically incentivized to feel accountable for the welfare of others. And interestingly enough, this is how we've organized our political life, where you have the Democrats on the left representing the fair share camp, and the Republicans on the right, the anti-freeloaders. And this is pretty much the same across all modern democracies. The brain didn't stop just at creating carrots for us, inducing pleasure. It also created the stick. And we now know that our brains created pain triggers associating with being rejected from the group. We know that it's the same part of the brain that lights up when you feel rejection and the ensuing loneliness, as you would if you felt actual physical pain, which means that being rejected by the group actually creates neurological pain to whoever that happens to. All right, so far we know that we've been genetically designed to care for others. This is what is natural for us. And yet we live in a world where beyond family and friends, feeling accountable for the well-being of other people is kind of a fringe activist behavior. So how come we took on behaviors that are so skewed towards one side of the balance that we need? Now, if we can't look inside, let's look outside. And here I need to introduce the notion of reciprocity. I must say here that I owe a great debt of gratitude to a brilliant guy called Paul Collier, who made one of the most compelling accounts of what's happened to us in modern society, and from which I draw a lot of today's findings. I urge you to read this guy. Reciprocity is the simple idea that I can trust that whatever I do for you, you will pay me back. I owe you, you owe me. This is how we've built civilization. We needed to be able to project into the future and have things come back to us at a time where it made more sense or the other person could fulfill their obligation. And what we did was come up with pretty much universal values that we all developed independently from each other and got to the same sets, all gravitating towards, in this case, the idea of fairness and the idea of loyalty. And this is how we create reciprocity and obligations. I owe you, you owe me, and we keep each other in check through the carrot and stick that we talked about earlier. Now comes the Industrial Revolution. At the time, through recognizing that they had a common attachment to the place where they grew up, communities in the north of England mostly, built organizations that allowed them to benefit collectively from industrialization. They built frameworks that helped engage in increasingly complex forms of reciprocity. This is what we call the cooperative movement, building societies for home financing, cooperative insurance, retail, agribusiness. And this phenomena spread very quickly through the modern world. It became the roots of social democrat political parties, which form the political base of most developed countries in the world today. So what happened is that the benefits of reciprocity within these communities scaled up as the communities became more and more sophisticated nations. What we had was we owe it to each other to make it work. Now, things changed in 1945. What the world needed was strong states that would collaborate internationally to prevent the atrocities of the Second World War from happening ever again. Man can be a beast of mind, best make sure we administer on his behalf. And with this thinking, what we did was transfer the accountability we had between me and you to the state. We shifted from I owe you to I owe the state that will take care of it. Now, in the 70s, things got even worse. On top of disconnecting rights and obligations from the individuals and shifting them to the state started disconnecting rights from obligations. We went from promoting happiness for the greatest number to designing laws that benefited the most disadvantaged groups. This is when welfare, irrespective of contribution, started, and we started allocating special rights to special groups. Essentially what we did is we reattached rights to individuals, but without the counterpart obligations. And this is how we created entitled individualism, how we came to destroy our belief in the reciprocity of our society. Now let's go back to our balance. What we owe to others has been taken care of by the government. No need to feel any accountability towards that. And on the other side, people are not necessarily contributing as much as I feel I do, are getting special treatment. Therefore, I need to fend for myself and become even more individualistic. Now, if things weren't tricky enough, meet this guy. This is Eddie Bernays. He's Sigmund Freud's nephew. And he was the first guy to understand that if you get people to buy not what they need, but what they desire, you create some sort of self-reinforcing and never-ending loop where people get convinced that the next purchase is the key to unlocking the next level of being, putting once again more focus on self. And I'll let you imagine what this did to us. What happened is that our mental bandwidth we had available for other people shrank. We got bombarded by the same messages that kept inflating our sense of self, and we came to think that others were a nuisance. What we did was narrow down our tribalism to extremely narrow groups of people, our children, our spouse, and in some cultures, not even our parents. This is how it became perfectly natural to have absolutely no clue who your neighbor is, live with people that you don't speak to, or consider that the homeless guy at the corner of your street is not really your problem. So let's look at what we have so far in terms of the philosophy behind community building. First, we know that we're designed to account for and look after people. Second, we need reciprocity in obligations to feel that the system is working. Now, you can imagine that we wouldn't be here if there wasn't also a lot of hope in this divisive system that we've created for us. And the hope comes from the fact that the digital age didn't bring us only selfies and digital echo chambers for our opinions, it also brought us something we could share. With the internet and collaborative online efforts, we are relearning how to create value out of share and open resources in a way that balances self-interest with the good of the larger community. Every edit, every upload, every blog post, every like contributes to expanding not only myself, but also benefit others. And for the first time in modern history, we're shifting back to what's in it for me to what's in it from us. And that's very exciting because we are starting to behave at our own very level like members of the most successful community in the last 500 years, if not more. And that's the scientific community. Because all of us started to act and contribute to this pool of knowledge, we behave in a way that promotes the interest of the group. Now let's look at this remarkable band of women and men to list out the 3 pillars of philosophy of community building. The first one is a sense of belonging based on a shared identity. Like our tribal forefathers, scientists nurture the sense of belonging by creating a shared identity built around rituals and processes. I should mention here that the more moral this purpose is, the better, the more people will stay together. The second is that we need a reciprocity in obligations. Like us, scientists have rules to promote reciprocity and sanction the ones who don't, like what happened to Jonas Salk, which is the guy you're seeing on the screen here. Despite being responsible essentially for the vaccine against polio, he was never admitted into the National Academy of Science, which is the highest honor for any polio researcher. And he'd end up his career fairly unsuccessfully and alone. And that's because at a press conference in 1955, he didn't mention the Nobel Prize who allowed him to come up with this innovation, nor his own team. And he got punished for that. The last criteria is doing something with your community. A community that doesn't engage in purposive action, and action that is connected to a goal, that doesn't act on what it was supposed to do, dies. The purpose doesn't need to be curing cancer. It can be welcoming of other people who find themselves in the same situation as you. It can be taking care of specific demographic or a cause, but without purpose, there can't be any community. Because purpose adds the critical element of a narrative that helps connect people to something larger than self. And there you have it. Our 3 pillars of community. We need a sense of belonging built on a shared identity. We need reciprocity in obligations, and we need purposive action. I'll leave you with this quote. When in doubt, coming up with your next community building venture, not sure how to do it, if it's going to be successful or not, I want you to rest assured that at least you're in the right place at the right time, taking care of the right problems. With that, I thank you.